Start.
Right, diolch yn fawr. Bore da i chi gyd. Good morning to you all and welcome to the South West Wales Corporate Joint Committee meeting. At the start, I just announced that the meeting is being recorded for broadcast via the Council's internet site, and by participating you are consenting to being filmed and the possible use of those images and sound recordings for training purposes. So we'll start with item 1 in terms of welcome and chair's announcements. We have received apologies from Councillor Rob Stewart, and so Councillor David Hopkins is here in his place. Croeso David, welcome David. As I mentioned, the meeting is being recorded, so make sure that your microphones are switched to mute unless speaking, and make sure that the mobile phones are switched off as well. If you want to speak, then raise your electronic hand or show your hand in person, and I'll call you in. So we move on then to item 2, declaration of interests. I'd ask if members have any interest to declare to please show now. No.
I see no indication, Chair.
Right, thanks very much. So we move on then to item 3, which is the forward work programme. This is set out on page 3 of the agenda. It's for noting purposes, so obviously in terms of the corporate strategy. Do officers have anything to add on this point? No, quite.
Just Chair, just to say that we're in the process of arranging for it to go out to consultation once we've got a clear decision today on the budget option that you're running with. Yeah,
no, that's fine. Great. Okay, then, so if that's the case, are members happy just to note that? If you could show by raising your hands, that would be great. Great, thank you very much. We'll move now then to item 4, which is the internal audit charter, which starts on page 7 of the agenda. And I'll ask Matthew Holder to present the report, if possible. Matthew.
Thank you, Chair. Apologies to some of the members. This will be probably the 3rd time that you've seen a similar document from me where Pembrokeshire are the nominated internal audit lead. However, the internal audit charter is a really important document which strengthens the existing governance arrangements to the South West Wales Corporate Joint Committee. The internal audit charter is attached to Appendix A, and it's compliant with the public sector internal audit standards which came into force in 2013. Members will be aware that internal audit's mission is to enhance and protect organisational value by providing risk-based and objective assurance, advice and insight, which is designed to add value and improve the organisation's operations. The internal audit charter outlines the specific responsibilities of my team and the rights to access people and documents when they are required, as well as how my team will approach their work in terms of professional care, integrity, independence and impartiality. The expectations and responsibilities of myself as a nominated South West Wales Corporate Joint Committee Head of Internal Audit are also included within the charter. Just finally, Chair, the internal audit charter is periodically reviewed by myself. It's been taken to the Governance and Audit Committee a couple of months back, and should any revisions be required, these again will be brought back to the Corporate Joint Committee's Governance and Audit Committee. I'm happy to take any questions, Chair. Thank you.
Great, thanks very much, Matthew. Yeah, this is I suppose an important part in terms of our governance as a CJC. It's been through the system, as it were. Obviously, officers have fed in as well. Are there any comments or questions on this from members? No, content. If that's the case, then I'll ask for a member to propose that we accept it. Yeah. Thank you, David. And can I ask for the seconder, please?
I'm the second.
Thank you, David. And are members happy to approve? Council members to show, please. Right. Thank you very much. Thank you, Matthew, for that. So we move on then to item 5, which is the updated terms of reference to the Governance and Audit Subcommittee. The report starts on page 17 of the agenda, and I'll ask Craig Griffiths, please, if he'll present the report. Craig.
Thank you very much, Chair. Just a short report from myself. At the first meeting of the Governance and Audit Subcommittee, the members of that committee asked whether we could consider structuring our terms of reference for that committee in line with recent SIPFA guidance on audit committees. No major changes ultimately to the substantive elements of the actual terms of reference themselves, just some minor structural amendments. But because of the nature of changes, we just need the Corporate Joint Committee to approve them today for them to take implementation from here on in, Chair. But happy to answer any questions the members may have.
Great. Diolch, Craig. Thank you very much for that. Are there any questions or comments on this point? Again, it's another structural report in terms of governance. I don't see any hands up, so I take it that members are generally content with the content. If that is the case, could I ask once again then for someone to propose formally?
Proposed, Chair.
Thank you, David. And again, can I ask for a seconder, please?
Happy to second.
Thank you, Dave. Just going that quicker than Steve there. Thanks, Dave. Thanks, David. So can I ask that members show then by showing their hands that we're all in agreement to accept the report? Great. Diolch yn fawr. Thank you very much. So we move on then to item 6, which is the Local Government Pension Scheme Administering Authority report. It's set out on page 31 of the agenda. And I'll ask Chris Moore to present the report, please. Chris, diolch.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, this report is about opt-in for the appropriate local government pension scheme for the CJC as we employ staff. We were approached in December by Welsh Government, who were working with UK government regarding the UK legislation around the CJCs. And we were given a short deadline of being requested to opt for a local government pension scheme for any of the employees that are employed through the CJC over the coming years. The reason for the request from Welsh Government is they wanted to build this into legislation as part of the development of the Section 150 order. So it was really down for officers to recommend a nominated pension scheme. And really for this region, there were two options really. One was the the Dyfed Pension Fund, which is operated by Carmarthenshire County Council, or the City and County of Swansea Fund, which is operated by Swansea Council. We looked at the options really, and the logic came down to the fact that as I have responsibility under Section 151 for the CJC, there seemed to be an obvious link with the Dyfed Pension Fund. But in addition to that, so far any staff that we've employed are being employed through Carmarthenshire's payroll system. So there seemed to be a logic in opt-in for the Dyfed pension scheme. From the employee's point of view, it doesn't make any difference because the benefits of the pension scheme are dictated by UK legislation. So there was no benefit there at all. It was just for convenience as to where it was administered from. I discussed the options with my colleague Ben Smith in Swansea, and he was in support of it actually falling with Dyfed Pension Fund. So this report really is just to bring the CJC committee up to date with the position that we have gone back with a nominated fund, i.e. Dyfed Pension Fund, as being the nominated scheme for any employment through the CJC going forward. Thank you, Chair.
Great, Chris. Thank you very much for that. Yeah, so as Chris mentioned, the report is there for noting. It's for information. I'm assuming that members are content. Are there any queries on this point? No, quite happy. There we are. Then I'll just ask for a show of hands. Are we happy to note the contents then? Great. Thanks very much. Diolch yn fawr. Thank you, Chris. So we'll move on then to item 7, which is the update on the Freeport and the implications for the regional energy plan. This is set out on page 35 of the agenda. Obviously, it's been subject to a lot of discussion over the last couple of weeks and months. So I'll ask Karen Jones then just to provide us with a verbal update if possible. Diolch, Karen.
Thank you very much, Chair. This is just to confirm to the Corporate Joint Committee that since we last met, a bid has been formally submitted to the two governments for a free port that would cover the port of Milford Haven and the port of Talbot. And can we just say a big thank you to colleagues at Swansea and at Carmarthenshire for the letters of support that you've kindly written to the two decision makers in the process. That's very much appreciated. Since the bid has been submitted, we've been focusing our collective efforts on making sure that people are aware of the basis of the bid. And I'm pleased to say to you that we've got over 100 organisations that are now positively supporting the bid, with the decision expected probably early March, we think. So that's broadly the timetable that we're working to. In the intervening period, we've been taking the opportunity as well around floating offshore wind and the renewable agenda, particularly to reach out to trade union colleagues to discuss the Fair Work commitments that we've written into the Freeport part of the bid, so the Freeport bid. And we will be meeting with universities and colleges across the region in the next couple of weeks to start to explore what the opportunities are around skills and training as well, and the whole innovation sector. So I think, Chair, the proposal today, other than noting that that's where we are with the Freeport bid, is that maybe it's now opportune to have a workshop for the Corporate Joint Committee members, just to take stock of what the Freeport bid is potentially going to enable us to unlock in terms of benefits, but then to respond to the points that colleagues have raised about how we make sure that the whole region benefits from this, how it connects into our economic development and energy aspirations, and also what the potential opportunities are more broadly across into the rest of Wales and beyond. So it's worth noting, Chair, just to make sure that we keep the Corporate Joint Committee up to date with the submission of the Freeport bid itself, but more particularly then to have a discussion about how we can now engage within the region to make sure this is part of a wider agenda that we can all get behind. And just before I finish, I think if the Corporate Joint Committee was so minded, I think there is an opportunity as well for the Corporate Joint Committee as an entity to maybe indicate support for the bid as well. And if you were happy to support that, we'd get our communications colleagues together for leaders to have the opportunity to maybe to give a collective voice around support for the bid as well. But I leave leaders perhaps to just reflect on that. I don't know whether Councillor Simpson wants to come in as the energy lead and obviously as the partner to Neath Talbot to say anything, or Will or Steve, Darren, before we open it up for discussion.
Yeah, dear Karen, thanks for that. Yeah, if that's okay, I'll ask David first of all, and then I'll ask Steve to come in if that's okay. So David, over to you.
Thank you very much, Chair, and I welcome this committee sending a letter off to the people who can make the decision. I think that's a very good idea. I think when you say you've had 2 letters already, I think we've sent a letter off Pembrokeshire as well. I'm not too sure whether you've had that or not, but yes, personally, I've been to several meetings in over the last month or so, site meetings at the port, tremendous amount of enthusiasm for the scheme, and I look forward to it coming to fruition and the amount of jobs it's going to bring and prosperity to the area, and I back it wholeheartedly. So yeah. Thank you very much indeed. I'm sure Will come in, or Stephen Jones is here. I see the director. I'm sure they'll come in as well to have a few words. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, David. I'll ask Steve then in Neath Talbot to come in at this stage. Steve.
Yeah, thanks, Dar. I can only echo the comments of Karen, and the report is here, and of course I hope the Corporate Joint Committee supports a letter. On the points of politicalness, and again, I don't know how many of you got influence, I think that's also very critical. This is a chance in a lifetime, I suppose, of getting a Freeport. I believe that the bid is the best bid that has been presented. However, as you all know in this room, politics will sometimes overshadow decision making. And possibly there'll be 2, but we can't rely on that. We've got to give this our best shot. I certainly echo and concur that I hope that this committee supports it and puts that letter forward. The potential of what it can do for jobs, prosperity, and it's not just across the Milford Haven, Neath, Talbot, but Swansea and Carmarthenshire. I think Karen was spot on to make sure that those benefits are shared right across the region. So again, it goes without saying, I'm 100% behind this, Chair, as are yourself, I know, and David, and Swansea, I forgot his name, man. What's his name? Swansea. Rob. Yeah, sorry. I forget Rob Stewart. Good God. Anyway, and Rob is. So yeah, those just a few words from me. So thank you.
No, Rob, thanks, Dave. You wait till I tell him when I thought you forgot his name. Are there any comments from officers at this stage? Not quite happy. Yeah, so I would say that Karen, thanks for the introduction there. I think it was useful. Obviously, from our perspective in Carmarthenshire, I know that Robin Swansea as well has sent that letter of support, so I see absolutely no problem in sending a joint one from the CJC. I think that would make sense. Obviously, the work has taken place in terms of assessing the potential impacts, hasn't it? You know, at a high level. And I think there is scope, as you mentioned, to drill a bit deeper and to actually how do we map out those benefits across the region. So again, on a personal level, I'd welcome that chance to meet up in a workshop just to see how it pans out across across the 4 council areas. Obviously, we're aware it's been in the news this week in terms of the pressures on the steel sector, you know, and the financial support that might be coming from government on that. So I think this, you know, really ties in, doesn't it? It's clearly pivotal, really, to steel production. But as you say, there are other benefits as well, not just in terms of the renewable energy sector, but the economic development potential for us in South West Wales. So absolutely, you know, wish you well with that bid, and hopefully things go our way on the start of March. So I'll just put it formally into the group that there are 2 elements we need to agree on. One, that we're happy to write jointly as a CJC in support of the bid. Can I firstly take a vote on that? People are happy with that? Yeah, great. And the second one is that we agree in principle to arrange a workshop then where we get together just to try and map some of this stuff out, particularly on the benefits. Everyone happy? Great. Thanks very much. So thank you for that, and thank you, Karen, for the report. So with that, then we'll move on to item 8, which is the budget for the next financial year. This is set out on page 43 onwards on the agenda, and I'll ask Chris Moore once again, if possible, to present the detail of the report. Chris, diolch.
Okay, diolch, Chair. Yeah, this report is, as Darren has stated, to set the budget for next year. As a committee, we are committed and responsible for setting the budget and agreeing the levies to the constituent authorities before the 31st of January each year. You will recall that we had a draft budget come forward to the December meeting, and that allowed us to give early indications to the constituent authorities for their own budgeting purposes where the levy was going to sit. And at that time, we considered 3 options, and that was particularly focused and on the fact that each constituent authority is under significant pressure and has some significant financial challenges due to some of the inflationary and energy inflations, etc., that are putting pressure on our budgets and significantly causing requirements to reduce our overall budgets through various budget cuts, etc. So that was very conscious in the decision in December, and there were three options put forward. One was to expand the CJC, which was a budget of around about £1.5 million. One was actually to do nothing, which actually challenged us legally without getting Welsh Government approval. And the other one was more of a continuity, do minimum budget, and that is where the committee landed and confirmed their desire to go in December, which allows us to progress with the 4 work streams, but progress at a steady state as opposed to an expansion as such. So this report then builds on that picture. It has realigned some of the budgets accordingly, and this budget is very much in line with where we set the current year budget. Current year budget was 575,000. This budget creeps up to 617, but it's a marginal movement. The budget itself, which we are now referring to as a continuity budget, is laid out within the report, and very much are on similar lines to what the first year was, although there will be a greater focus on the work streams. There are 4 clear work streams. Each have been allocated 20,000, and we have then set aside another 140,000, which can be used towards the emerging corporate plan as we actually finalise that and identify the various actions and measures that need to be developed through that. That will allow some sort of allocation of any pressures within those other 4 work streams during the year. And I believe the corporate plan is being developed in some more detail at the moment. Within the report, there are some key actions and of the subcommittees at the end, which sort of tries to crystallise really the thoughts going forward in terms of where we're going. And I'm not sure at the end of this report whether either Karen, the Chief Exec, or Owain may want to come in and talk a little bit more about those items. Due to the fact that we've only allocated 20,000 to each of the work streams, we have again concluded that it's probably inappropriate to levy the National Parks authorities at the moment, because the value of the 20,000 is not considered to be significant enough that a levy is raised, and there is a requirement in the legislation that we only raise levies in respect to the national parks for the applicable area, which is around the strategic planning. So this again is consistent with last year because of the limited activity in terms of the strategic planning development. It seems reasonable that that doesn't actually provoke a levy this year. The budget is broken down into 3 key elements: the joint committee and the accountable body, where the costs accumulate at 263,000. They are mainly some of the governance services and some of the SLAs. Generally, they've been increased by 10%, which is in line with inflation and in line with some of the pressures that are being faced by the constituent authorities who are supporting that. That's with the exception of the financial services, where the salary inflationary item has been included in line with what the pay award has been, etc. The joint committees is the next section, which accumulates to £220,000, which includes the 20 per individual subcommittee, and then the 140,000, which is the planning and the programme management, which is aligned with the corporate plan. What I would comment on, there has been an eagle eye member who has spotted in the report that's going to scrutiny later in the week that there, on paragraph 2.4, there is an extra 0 that's been added, And just if in case anyone thought that we were allocating 1.4 million, it's not. It's 140,000. It's just somehow in typing there's an extra zero being put in. And then you have the Regional Management Office, which is the support office, where there's an allocation of £134,000 to fund that. The total value of 617 is then shared between the 4 constituent authorities, and the levies are stated in paragraph 3.6 on page 46 of the report, and that is allocated on a population basis, which is how we agreed the allocation last year, and will be consistent with what the 4 constituent authorities are expecting. That will be notified to each of the constituent authorities by the end of the month formally, but I'm pretty sure most of the Section 1 or all the Section 151s are aware of the levy coming through anyway and have allowed appropriately within their own budgets. So that really gives a summary. I propose that we accept the budget of 617 today. Quite a bit of work has gone in there. Maybe Karen wants to talk a little bit about the work streams and the detail behind that and what's proposed now. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chris. Diolch yn fawr. Yeah, Karen, do you want to come in at this point?
Yes, please, Chair, just to kind of add to what Chris has said. And can I just say a big thank you to the regional directors that are on the call this morning as well, because there's been a great deal of input from colleagues that have been looking at the duties around transport planning, strategic development planning, and also those wider energy and economic development aspirations that the committee has as well. So in Appendix B on page 50, I think it is, of the report, what I've tried to do there is just summarise for members the key activities that we expect to be taken forward on the basis of the budget that Chris has just run through with you. There will be more detail in the corporate plan when it comes back to you that'll go into finer detail with timescales and outcomes and that kind of thing. But I thought it would be helpful for you in setting the budget just to have an understanding of what the work is that we will do for this level of investment. So when we spoke before Christmas, leaders were really clear that you wanted to prioritise the development of the regional transport plan over the next 12 months. What's happening in the background is there's dialogue with Welsh Government over who's going to foot the bill for that work. It is very substantial, and I have to say that it's only this side of the new year that I've actually formally received the draft guidance on the regional transport plan from Welsh Government, and I gave a gentle reminder before Christmas that we'd not formally had any advice from them on either the regional transport plan or the strategic development plan. I think it's fair to say that across Wales, everyone is highlighting concerns about the cost of those 2 exercises. So there's more discussion that needs to be had with Welsh Government about who is actually going to resource it. But just to give leaders comfort in terms of where your priorities are, although we've identified £20,000 for each of the 4 work streams, the intention is that the 140,000 that Chris has referred to will be applied to moving that work forward on the regional transport plan. It's going to be limited in the first instance to probably creating the delivery agreement, which will then set out the more detailed piece of work that will need to be done and the cost of doing that. And that will give us time to have that further dialogue that I've mentioned with Welsh Government, because I think there's an important point of principle there that leaders agreed with Julie James when these CJCs were set up. The new burdens would come with new resources. So I just want to say that to leaders on the call, because I suspect that there'll be a request for a meeting at political level, as well as the ongoing conversations that we're having at officer level. On the strategic development plan, then, what we agreed last time is that the draft manual is out at the moment with professionals for commentary, but the reality of it is that that process is going to need to take longer, given the pressures, not just in terms of financial resources, but the human resource pressures that we're all facing as well, with councils, planning authorities already engaged in a number of other planning activities. So the anticipation this year, Chair, in terms of the work, is that we've got a lot of work already underway in the region on economic development. Because of the way the CJCs have been set up, we've had to use lead authority arrangements on things like the Shared Prosperity Fund, because as you know, the arrangements on VAT recovery were not in place at the time we were looking at those exercises. So we'll be mapping out all of that activity and bringing that back for members to look at. And there's some detail, as I say, that'll come to you in the corporate plan that'll talk about some of the other things that in terms of economic development infrastructure across the region that we would look to develop and move forward with next year. We've talked about energy earlier on, and alongside the work that we want to do around those big economic development opportunities, Stephen Jones is leading the work at the moment across the region on our energy plan to look at how we mobilise that and put that into practice, and that includes supporting individual local authorities with their own local energy plans. Transport, as I say, will be the key focus in starting the work to create the delivery programme. And say the work on the strategic development plan is going to be a slow burn, I think, over the course of this year, with probably the main focus on getting our comments back on the draft manual and having those discussions in the background with Welsh Government about how all of that could be funded. Other than that, I think, the CJC is pretty much broken the back of the governance arrangements this year. Those will need to be refined as we move over the next 12 months. But I think that probably the amount of work that we've got on governance next year, I'm touching wood here, is probably a lot less than it has been in the last 12 months. I think we've broken the back on most of the setup work now. It's more about bedding it in, mobilising the structures, and just making sure that what we've got is proportionate to the work that we need to do. So that's probably all I want to add, just to give that bit of context in terms of what the work will be for this level of investment. And as I say, you'll see a lot more detail around what I've just said when I bring the corporate plan back to you around about the end of March.
Great, thank you, Karen. Yeah, that's really useful just to provide some context, really, isn't it, in terms of what we're likely to be able to deliver given the proposed budget. But as I say, from my perspective, I know we've had discussions. We discussed the draft budget in the last meeting. I think it's prudent, considering where we are as local authorities and the budget pressures that we face. I think it's a prudent, sensible budget, really, which does enable us to get on with some work on the transport work stream, which is identified as a priority for us. But of course, as you mentioned, Karen, I think that fundamental discussion really with Welsh Government in terms of actually how do we resource some of this work, because it is intense. It will require funding and people. I think that's a discussion that we will take up. Obviously, I'm aware that every CJC is in the same position, and I'm sure that through the WLG and other mechanisms we will be making that point as well. But it's fundamental, isn't it? Because we are talking millions of pounds here, and at a time when we're having to really scratch our heads to protect frontline services, it's important that that additional resource which was promised is delivered. So thank you for that. Are there any questions or queries on this point from anybody? No, I don't see it. I think we're quite content. So yeah, in terms of the national parks, the issue there in terms of the levy has been addressed by Chris. Clearly, the strategic development plan work stream, it won't be progressing to a point where there'll be a need to levy the partners on that. So I'll put it to members then. I'll ask for a proposal that we adopt the budget as set out.
Proposed, yeah.
Thank you, David. And a seconder.
Happy to second.
And David from Swansea, thank you very much. And if you could raise our hands then to accept the budget formally. Great, thank you very much. Yeah, and as thank you to all officers, particularly Karen, Chris and Owen, who have worked really hard in the background here to try and get this into shape. It's not easy, given where we are as a CJC. So I'm sure we'd all want to formally record our thanks to those lead officers and officers across the councils who have fed into to getting us to where we are now. So thank you very much for your work.
Thanks, all.
With that then, on item 9, we haven't received any urgent items. None have been brought to my attention. And as there are no other items on the agenda, I'm happy to declare that the meeting is officially finished. Diolch yn fawr. Thank you very much for you all.
Thank you.